Hey everyone, I'm Ian,
And I'm Sam.
and you're listening to Do I Like This, the podcast.
Yay! So this week is our mainstream monthly, and I chose a movie Ian's never seen before that I've seen 85 million times, I think, in the 90s as a teenager. Interview with the Vampire. Listen, we are doing something a little different this week. We decided to record our first thoughts before we watch it. I haven't watched it since I was like 15 or so. I had a deep and enduring love for Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt with their long, silky hair as a teenager. And my friend and I, who were real into vampires and Anne Rice at the time, would watch this movie over and over again. And so I haven't seen it in a very, very long time. And I have fond memories, but the more I think about it, the more I think that it's probably going to suck.
I think my entire experience with this movie was having crushes on girls who would talk about this movie and avoiding seeing it because I wasn't smooth enough to ever get a date with any of the girls I had crushes on in high school.
No comment.
Checks out. So I'm dreading watching this movie. I'm not going to lie. It does not seem, from the tertiary knowledge I have of it, to be something I'm going to enjoy. But I'm going into it with the open mind of, hey.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's a classic. And from what I can recall, thinking of it from the mind of an adult, I'm thinking it's enjoyable as a vampire movie story, especially in the wake of Twilight and all that bullshit, right?
I avoided all that too. So, sure.
Same. No, I just think that it's a movie that you should see from our teenagehood.
All I know is my bar is What We Do in the Shadows, so it's a high bar.
Yeah. No, I've definitely I'm pretty sure now that I'm thinking about it more, which is why we want to do this, that my recollection of it is tainted by my teenage hormonal lusting brain.
My only knowledge of it is from my teenage hormonal lusting brain.
From the opposite side.
I was into Tom and Brad. What are we talking about? No, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I had the poster on my wall. I read all the books so many times. I just tried to read Interview with the Vampire again recently. It was really difficult to get into. It's not badly written. I think it's a good story. It's just, we'll talk about this in the episode. So those are my first thoughts going into it before watching it again after 20-ish years.
Guys, I'm just hoping to have a better time than Blair Witch.
I think you will.
It'd be hard not to. All right, so here we go. We're going to watch the movie. See you in a little bit. Woo! Whoa. Stuff, noises. So, we have now watched the movie.
Yes, we have. And boy, oh boy, do we have thoughts.
So, the tagline, which I didn't do in the first part, is a vampire tells his epic life story. Love, betrayal, loneliness, and hunger.
Oh my.
I enjoyed that tagline because it kind of fits with like the novelishness of this movie.
Yes.
And the melodramaticness.
Oh God, so melodramatic. This movie is just like it's a book. The movie's a book. It's filled with monologuing flowery prose.
Monologuing flowering boys.
And girls.
And girl, yeah.
It's happened.
Do you have the summary up and ready?
So, Interview with the Vampire was 1994, starring Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. If you don't know this movie, then you weren't born yet, I guess. I don't know when it came out.
I do want to say, you need to correct the statement. It's baby Tom Cruise and baby Brad Pitt.
Oh, yes. Very, very baby Brad Pitt. Like a little tiny baby Brad Pitt.
And the babyest Kirsten Dunst, yeah.
I was just going to say, an actual baby Kirsten Dunst. All right, so I'm going to read the plot from Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
I read it the other day, and I think I remember it being fine.
We're about to find out.
It's not that long, which makes sense because the movie meanders a bit very, very slowly. So there's not a whole lot to tell.
It dwells in moments. Yeah.
Right. There's not a whole lot to tell. So here we go. This summary doesn't have the actors who play the part. So as we go through and I read about them, I'll say who plays them so that you have a frame of reference.
Oh, absolutely. You need to know.
Right. Ready? Okay. In modern day San Francisco, reporter Daniel Malloy interviews Louis Ponchelac. Daniel Malloy is Christian Slater, and it's Louis. It's spelled Louis, but it's French. So Louis is Brad Pitt, who claims to be a vampire. Louis describes his human life as a wealthy plantation owner in 1791 Spanish Louisiana. Despondent following the death of his wife and unborn child, he drunkenly wanders the waterfront of New Orleans one night and is attacked by the vampire Lestat de Lancourt, who is played by Tom Cruise. Lestat senses Louis' dissatisfaction with life and offers to turn him into a vampire. Louis accepts, but quickly comes to regret it. While Lestat revels in the hunt and killing of humans, Louis resists his instinct to kill, instead drinking animal blood to sustain himself. Disgusted by Lestat's pleasure in killing, Louis comes to suffer tremendously as a vampire. Tremendously should be emphasized. Wandering the streets of New Orleans amid an outbreak of plague, Louis can resist his hunger no more and feeds on a little girl whose mother died in the plague. To entice Louis to stay with him, Lestat turns the dying girl, Claudia, played by Kirsten Dunst, into a vampire. Together, they raise her as a daughter. Louis has a pure fatherly love for Claudia, untrue, which Lestat spoils and treats her more as a pupil, training her to become a merciless killer. 30 years pass and Claudia matures psychologically but remains a little girl in appearance and continues to be treated as such by Lestat. When she finally realizes she'll never grow older or become a mature woman, she's furious with Lestat and tells Louis they should leave him. She tricks Lestat into drinking dead blood of twin boys, whom she killed. I'm going to skip some of this. And then slits his throat. Though Louis is shocked and upset by Lestat's death, he helps Claudia dump Lestat's body in a swamp. They spend weeks planning a voyage to Europe to search for other vampires, but Lestat returns on the night of their departure, having survived on the blood of swamp creatures. Lestat attacks them, but Louis sets him on fire, and in the ensuing blaze, they are able to escape to their ship and depart. After traveling around Europe and the Mediterranean, but finding no other vampires, Louis and Claudia settle harmoniously, I guess. Is that what they do? In Paris.
That's a choice of words.
Right, in 1870.
I don't think anyone ever was in a state of harmonious being in this movie.
No, especially not in Paris. Louis encounters vampires Santiago and Armand by chance. Armand invites Louis and Claudia to his coven, the Theatre des Vampires, where the vampires stage theatrical horror shows for humans.
See, I'd also disagree with that. I don't think it's by chance. I think they purposely find him.
Well, yeah, this summary is filled with small errors that don't really matter in the long run, but matter if you care about storyline, which this movie didn't. On their way out of the theater, Santiago reads Louis' mind and suspects that Louis and Claudia murdered Lestat. Armand warns Louis to send Claudia away for her own safety, and Louis is intrigued to stay with Armand and learn about the meaning of being a vampire. Claudia demands Louis turn a human woman, Madeline, into a vampire to be her new protector and companion, and he reluctantly complies. Now on to Ian's very favorite part of the movie.
We'll get to that.
Shortly thereafter, the Parisian vampires abduct the three of them and punish them for Lestat's murder, imprisoning Louis in a coffin and trapping Claudia and Madeline in a chamber where sunlight burns them to ash.
Fuck you, movie.
Armand does nothing to prevent this, but the next day he frees Louis. Seeking revenge, Louis returns to the theater at dawn and sets it on fire, killing all the vampires, including Santiago.
With a scythe.
Yeah, which was fun. I like that.
Oh, it's the most enjoyable detail in the movie and having time to reflect, so I want to emphasize he uses a scythe to cut him in half.
It was good. The effect there was good, too. Armand arrives in time to help Louis escape the sunrise and once again offers him a place by his side. Louis rejects Armand and leaves, knowing Armand had allowed Claudia's murder so he could have Louis to himself. As the decades pass, Louis never recovers from the loss of Claudia and dejectedly explores the world alone. If anyone's read the book, you know that none of this is true. He returns to New Orleans in 1988 and one night encounters a decayed, weakened Lestat, living as a recluse in an abandoned mansion and surviving on rat blood as Louis once had. The worst scene in the entire movie. Can we just put that out there right now?
It's a tough choice. There are a lot of them to contend with.
Lestat expresses regret for having turned Claudia into a vampire and asks Louis to rejoin him, but Louis did.
I don't recall him expressing regret.
He does.
All right.
Well, no. He just says she shouldn't have been one of us.
All right. I guess that's a regret. Okay,
Yeah.
Fine.
I'm not sure if Lestat regrets anything. So moving on. Louis declines and leaves. Louis concludes his interview with Malloy, the reporter, prompting Malloy to beseech Louis to make him his new vampire companion. Louis is outraged that Malloy has not understood the tale of suffering he has related, attacks Malloy to scare him into abandoning the idea. Louis then vanishes, and Malloy runs to his car and takes off while playing the cassette tape of Louis' interview in the car. On the Golden Gate Bridge, Lestat appears and attacks Malloy, taking control of the car. Revived by Malloy's blood, Lestat offers Malloy the choice he never had, whether or not to become a vampire, and laughing, continues driving over the bridge.
Okay, Sam, I just want to ask you first, because we're going to talk a lot about how I feel having seen this for the first time. How is this compared to your first impressions? How did it hold up?
Dude, okay. So again, I know I said it when we recorded. So we recorded that the other night, and then we watched the movie, and then we've waited a couple days to record.
I was needed to be in repose
thoughts.
after seeing this film.
Ian needed to decompress because he was super fired up after the Claudia death.
Yes, that's movie.
So I may have already said this. I don't remember. I used to watch this movie all the time with my friend Stephanie. I had like Brad Pitt's poster on my wall from this movie. This movie came out in 94, so I was 11. I know I didn't see it in the theater. I'm sure I saw it like maybe 95, 96. So I was like 12 to 15, I would say. That era goth kid Sam, like Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise in this movie were like my sexuality. They just were. And I still think that they both look very attractive. They have beautiful hair. The costuming in this movie is so gorgeous. The dark, like dreary cinematography calls to my soul.
I just assumed you were into floaty kisses.
Oh God, the floaty makeout. But here's the thing. The movie now, as an adult watching it, because I haven't seen it in so long, so it was sort of like watching it for the first time. It's basically like, because Anne Rice wrote much of the screenplay. She didn't have like a full say in everything, but she was heavily involved in it. Mm-hmm. Not as much as she would like, which is why she's making a new series, but we'll talk about that later. And so it basically came off like a 40-year-old woman vampire fanfic before Twilight, before Reddit. That's what it felt like.
That's a good way to put this movie. Yeah, I think that's really good.
It was really difficult to watch the first half hour. We almost turned it off. We kept looking at each other like, oh my God, this is unbearable. It was unbearable. It was really dorky. It was really like the language was so flowery and the accents were so fake and terrible. And it was like dorky, but it was the early 90s. So, whatever. I feel like the only thing that like held us there before Claudia, because once Claudia came on scene, it was much more watchable. But everything before Claudia was just like so like over dramatic, and frankly, it was kind of boring. It just like took forever, even though they truncated the backstory like aggressively. The only thing that held us in was Tom Cruise is such a douche,
and he was terrible in this movie.
But he's perfect as Lestat. He embodies that whole persona like beyond perfectly. He's the only thing that kept me in the movie in that first half hour. He was delightfully douchey, according to my notes.
Agree completely with Tom Cruise. What a wonderful piece of shit. I even used the gif of him dancing with Claudia's mother's dead body today
Yes.
in our conversations. That was so good.
That's always been one of my favorite moments.
That was the first thing in the movie I liked.
No. You liked it when Louis killed the dogs.
Oh, yeah, I did like it when Louis killed the dogs. It took me a moment. Yeah, I did enjoy that. Okay, so I just want to rephrase again. This was a movie Sam chose for me to come watch.
Well, because you'd never seen it, and I thought it was a travesty.
Yeah, it's one that I definitely hadn't seen. I really wish I still hadn't seen the first 45 minutes of this movie. I wanted, you weren't kidding. I think you took in your notes or something. You're like, is Ian okay? Because we were watching the first 40 minutes and it's awful. It's awful. It's just awful.
It says, is Ian in actual pain?
Yeah, on your phone. Yeah. I thought I was. It really was just one of the worst. I would have never made it through this movie if we weren't doing it for this podcast. I would have given up well before. I'm not necessarily glad I didn't. I guess my feelings on this movie is you should see it because it was such a cultural, it falls under like Blair Witch with me. Maybe in its time, if it got me like to second base on a date by taking a girl to it, I could have justified to see this movie. But I hated it. I'm going to come out right and say it. Even the parts that were interesting and a little bit okay, I really disliked this movie. It was painful to watch. It was way too long and way too little happened. It was like if True Blood was in the early 90s. That's what that felt like to me.
It was so weird, like how little actually occurred.
Yeah.
As I was watching it, I'm like, how did I sit through this as a teenager? I guess I just stared into their dreamy eyes or something the whole time because I don't remember being bored by it ever.
Dreamy eyes are a hell of a drug.
They are. They really are.
That's fair.
Especially with the long, beautiful hair attached.
Hell, I got through like most of Dawson's Creek staring at like attractive 20-somethings in the 90s. I get it.
So we both started to perk up when Claudia came on scene. Kirsten Dunst.
Credit where credit's due. Kirsten Dunst's best role.
Best role of her career, really.
She was fantastic in this movie. Yeah. And I was really even more impressed, like as a child actor, being able to handle some of the emotional range of Claudia, realizing she's never going to physically grow up with the experience in life that she's living and how limiting and, debilitating in so many ways her existence is because of that. She did a great job.
There's a confrontation at one point where she cuts all of her hair off. And
she goes full Felicity.
Yeah, she's like freaking out and they find a dead body in her room. And they're like, I can't believe you did this. Whatever. Like her and Lestat are having a tiff. And he's like, you need to get rid of this. And the way that she delivers her like retort where she's like, you get rid of it. And like does this like look and walk away. I was like, ooh, girl, like, oh, that was so good.
Yeah. Drop the mic and retire. That's the best you'll ever do.
Right. I was going to say she's never even come close to this role. Let's be serious. Everything else has just been garbage. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything I like. Bring It On.
Bring It On was fine. I genuinely, the bad Spider-Mans, she didn't really do it for me. I can't really name anything else she's done.
No.
I know she's been in stuff.
I mean, she's been in a bunch of stuff. It just, none of it has ever been something I enjoyed.
Elizabethtown. You liked Elizabethtown.
Oh, I like Elizabethtown, but mostly for the soundtrack and for the hilarious extended family. Like the main characters, I did not give a single fuck about.
Oh, yeah.
His extended family.
The post-funeral scene was a lot of fun,
so funny. Like that whole thing and like the dynamic of that rando family is really funny. The lead characters can fuck right off. They're terrible. But
Legolas did not shoot enough bows in that movie, so
no, Legolas just needs to not be in a movie where he talks. Let's say that. We just take off your shirt and stand there and look handsome, okay? The end.
That's how she talks to me too, so don't take it personally, Legolas.
So we both were like, oh, okay, this is good. The dynamic was better. There was like stuff going on between the three vampires.
I loved her murder of Lestat the first
Oh,
time. I thought that was
that was
fun.
really
And then
good.
the
Yeah.
dumping the body in the swamp. I was like,
hmm
all right, I'm starting to get on board with where this movie's going. And I stayed on board when Lestat came back as zombie Lestat.
Well, so she was fun because she was like really sinister, like a little
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
evil kid, and she was funny, like witty and whatever. And so it was fun to watch her, and it was fun to watch her and Lestat like playing off of each
Mm-hmm.
other. The dynamic with her and Louis was very creepy. It's also very creepy in the books because in the books she's 6 years old
I imagine.
and they're in love basically, and it's only like hinted at in this movie. Um, and it's very creepy. They had them kiss at one point.
I mean, it was implied.
No, there was a lip kiss right
Oh,
before
I was probably
they got
vomiting from watching this movie at that
yeah,
point.
when they got kidnapped by the vampires. It was
Yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
brief, but that's like actually a thing that is like a big piece of trivia that a lot of people know about is that was Kirsten Dunst's first kiss with like 30 something year old Brad Pitt when she was 11, and she was like it was very gross and creepy.
Yeah.
Because it was fucking
Still
creepy.
is.
Yeah, still is. It's
I
still
got
uncomfortable.
a
Got a
hot take
reverse
for you
boner.
on. Yeah. You got and you got a yeah. I don't even have a
Innie.
joke. It's just
Nope.
yeah, and it was the
Gross.
closest. Yeah. So my hot take for this movie is this movie would have been a lot better without Brad Pitt. I just want Lestat and Claudia, and they're being fucking sinister motherfuckers.
And their shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt was my least favorite thing in this movie.
I know. Like he was fine like acting wise, I guess. His character is just so like
Yeah, his character's Debbie Downer, and
Oh
it's not his
god.
fault. I'm not saying he was a bad actor. I'm just saying I hated his character in this movie. You know, yeah, your family got killed. Whoa, be so sad for
So
eternity.
let me tell you,
Drama.
I've read all the Vampire Chronicles except for like the newest one that just came out.
I'm sorry.
When I was a teenager, I started reading them and I've read them over the years as they've come out. And they're fine. They're a little ridiculous as time goes on. I tried to reread Interview with a Vampire like a month ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a few chapters in, and it's fine. I think it was written in the late 70s, early 80s, I want to say. So it has like a different tone than, the movie and what you would expect now, and different tone from the original books. But the book is totally different from this movie in so many ways.
Oh, I believe it.
The whole beginning piece, Ian was like, "This is too long," and I was like, "Dude, in the book, it's like 5 chapters long." Okay. And in the book, he's not married and has a kid and they don't die. It's his brother dies by suicide, possibly after having like a mental break of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels guilty. And it's like this whole like belabored thing. So then I'm listening to the audiobook because I'd really like to try to get through it.
Oh, I
I've
really
had
hope you didn't spend money on that.
no, it's on YouTube. Um, I've had to skip ahead because it just lingers on literal nothing for so many chapters. So many chapters about like the family at the neighboring plantation that Lestat wants to slaughter that Louis won't let him slaughter. And it's like, shut the fuck up. And that's what this movie felt like, unfortunately. And I'm thinking, how did my like 15-year-old self read this book and enjoy it? Because I'm an adult now and I appreciate the story and I like the story and I like elements of it, but god damn it.
Guys, I just want to take you through a couple of the sentences I wrote in my notes in no particular order, just so you can understand this movie a little bit better. So we've got one sentence is fish through the legs.
That was your first favorite scene.
Which was it? I don't even remember.
It was like a pantomime thing when they were out at a bar and a guy comes up under the ladies' petticoats and he has a fish.
Oh,
and he's
yeah,
waving it
yeah.
around.
And he's like trying to be like, oh, stinky. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I cracked up a little bit with that. Tom is so aggressive with neck play. That would have been when Fancy Boy Tom, the blonde, was turning lover boy Louis. The most romantically stage-crafted wire stunt of all time.
They flew up in the air spinning dramatically.
And they should have just kept going and the movie could have ended. I would have been fine with that. Let's see. It says boob drain wasteful vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And then stakes are nonsense, so are crucifixes. Oh, yeah, and they just arbitrarily decide, yeah, this is what vampires are and what they aren't. Dude, this movie, okay. I want to talk about the one thing I liked. I liked Claudia. I really liked her sinisterness. And I want to talk about what I hated the most, which was the fact that they killed her.
Right.
And I was just so angry because I saw the timer and how much movie was left. I'm like, you're killing her. The most interesting thing in this movie. Another take people aren't going to like. I fucking hated Antonio Banderas in this movie. I thought he was awful.
He was so good.
He was just garbage. I hated his character. It's not him as an actor. I just hated his character. I thought it was stupid.
I loved him.
I thought the whole French thing was stupid as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, it was weird.
Like that whole theater of the absurd, and I get what you're trying to do with that, but those vampires, hated them, not interesting. Ugh. Like this movie didn't have a goal. Like it was just, let's watch a couple people trot around through time, not doing much, and our end goal is not an ending.
Well, and here's the problem, I think, because it was a book, and the book is so expansive, and so much of the book's importance is the inner dialogue, like the inner voice of Louis.
That's why you have the whole Louis reporter scenes, yeah.
We get a lot of that in the movie, but we don't get enough of it, and so we don't get to see the motivations behind certain things. And so here's my take on Armand. So first of all, when I remember being a teenager and really disliking the theater of vampires thing, I thought it was really weird, really dumb. I get where it was coming from. It was like the counterculture of the time kind of deal.
Like the Three Penny Opera and those
like
kind of
scandalous,
things, yeah.
Yeah. But first, I thought Antonio Banderas was very good as Armand.
I wasn't criticizing his performance.
No, but I'm just
criticizing
saying
the character.
For me, I'm just talking about him.
Oh, okay.
I also liked his character. I thought he was a good foil because Lestat was a horrible teacher. He was a horrible person to have made you a vampire. He didn't give a shit about teaching you anything. Like, he just wanted you to do what he did and like fuck everything else. Like, I'm not going to teach you anything. I'm not going to give you any history. Like,
literally, if Donald Trump made you a vampire, you were in about the same hands.
Yeah, exactly. And Armand was the opposite. And so he was offering Louis, like, come with me. I'll teach you what it's like. I'll show you what the world is like. I'll give you, like, the history and all the stuff that you want. So it was like, I liked that dynamic. I liked that he was giving like little bits of insight into the vampire culture, for lack of a better word. I think part of the problem is also that I've read all the books and Armand is one of my favorite characters. He's like the most dynamic, interesting, like well-rounded of all of the characters. And so I like his character. And so I know
that's fair.
As I'm watching, like, who Armand is for, in my head.
He's the piece of shit who killed Claudia.
Right.
That's all I could see, not knowing any of that. Yeah.
Right. So that whole thing that happens is, to me, the worst part of the movie also, not because Claudia died, but because they fucked that up so hard. Because in the book, really? Let me tell you what actually happened in the book, okay? Let me lay it down for all of y'all who never read the book.
Let me get you a beat. No.
Right. So in the movie, Santiago reads Louis' mind and it's like, oh, you killed your maker. We're going to kill you. Blah. In the book, he is warned almost immediately, you made a vampire baby. That's not okay. We're not doing that up in here. She's in danger, basically.
You know what? I can agree with that. You probably shouldn't make vampire babies.
Right. Also, Lestat goes to Paris because he has a pre-existing relationship with Armand. So he goes to Paris and he is there. And he tells them what happened. And they have like a trial almost. And Lestat is basically, yeah, it's not like a trial, but it's basically like him telling them, like, they're deciding punishment basically. And so
Ooh,
they give them the same outcome and everything. But the point is that Lestat is there and he tells them what's going on, and that's why everyone is all fired up. And he's like demanding that they get rid of Claudia because he thinks that Louis will come back to him. And so there's this whole dynamic of Louis like, fuck you, dude, I'm not coming back to you. Like, you just killed my girlfriend / child, which is creepy, but whatever.
ugh. Real sentences from Anne Rice.
Right. And so that's where that happens. And then there is no other confrontation in New Orleans in the 80s, because what happens is Lestat is basically in hibernation for the rest of the 80s until he wakes up in the sequel, which we'll talk about later because it's
Dude, he picked a terrible decade to hibernate through.
He wakes up because of 80s music, basically. But we'll talk about that later.
Good.
So essentially, movie and book both agree here that Lestat tried to have a baby to save his marriage, and it just didn't work because that doesn't work.
Guys, don't have babies to save your marriage.
Don't make a vampire baby to save your marriage.
Have babies so you can more strategically vampire murder women in the street who think you're lost. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So my thought on that whole thing is I think both got it wrong. I hate both versions of it. I don't like either. I like the fact that Lestat is getting everyone riled up. Fine. But then a trial? Fuck that. I would much prefer like reading mind chaos. But then Lestat's not there. So it's just reading mind chaos. Like, I read your mind. This thought that could have been real or not, I'm going to kill you guys from. Both are stupid. Right. You needed Lestat to get there, rile everyone up, and then have murder. No trial. Just rile up murder. That's what you needed.
Ian, I did say it wasn't like a trial.
I'm pretty sure you said it went through 3 courts of appeals.
It went to the highest court in the land. So you were beyond furious at this point. We actually had to like stop the movie, and I had to like talk you down and convince you to finish watching it.
I really didn't want to.
I was like, there's only 30 minutes. You can do it. It's okay. You just have to think about why this makes sense in the grand scheme of things.
And I was like,
fuck this shit.
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Here's where I was at that point. This movie was not what I thought it was going to be at all. I don't honestly know what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I thought there was going to be more vampireness and not like bougie, silly vampires. I thought this was going to be like real vampire shit.
This is real vampires, Ian. What do you want? Twilight? Did you want them to sparkle?
I wanted 30 Days of Night is what I wanted. Yeah. I wanted some real gruesome. We're going to have to do that Murder Plane one with the vampire on a plane that just came out. That's what I want.
Murder Plane?
Pretty much. I want Murder Plane.
Vampire Murder Plane.
Vampire Murder Plane.
Somebody tell Asylum.
Paul, get on it. It's yours. The title is yours. I rescind it to you, bestowed upon you like Simba above the savannah. Anyways, it was just like I expected something horror-y. This wasn't horror at all. This was romance. Let's call it what
gruesome.
It was.
Oh, so listen, it was 1,000% romance. If this movie was made in our in our decade that we're in, there would be so much Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise making out. It wouldn't even be funny.
Oh yeah.
Because they are lovers in the book, and they are lovers like.
Oh, and this was 90s male makeout. Yeah.
They get real close to it, but they don't quite get close enough. The subtext is there. Let's say that.
So why I was so mad at that point was this movie that I really hated for 40 minutes did the unthinkable and turned me around a little bit into being like, all right, I'm watching this. I'd like to see where it goes at this point. I'm not thrilled, but I'm not hating it. And then it goes, oh, let's take this thing you enjoy more than anything in this film that's challenging to enjoy as it is, and gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Antonio Banderas wants his boyfriend.
Well, that's pretty much what it was. Because Lestat and Antonio Banderas were fighting over Brad Pitt, and Claudia was standing in the way.
Listen, I think it's really important. We just put this out there right now. If you're into someone else who's got a kid and they spend a lot of time with that kid, don't murder their kid because you think it's going to bring them closer to you. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to
Right.
want to spend time with you.
So now we have 2 rules for life. 1, don't have a kid to save a marriage because they'll
Yeah.
probably try to kill you.
hmm
2,
Don't murder a kid to try and start a marriage.
right, because that person will shun you forever, according to the movie.
And also, though, if it works, that's a fucked up marriage. You might not want that.
Yeah. In the books, Brad Pitt and Antonio Banderas spend like 150 years together or something after that,
Ugh.
traveling the world. Yeah.
That's me throwing up.
Yeah.
All right.
So here's the thing. Knowing what I know about the books, it's been a really long time since I read them, so I have like the vague knowledge of things. Knowing what I know about the books, having like that nostalgic remembrance of the movies or the movie when I used to watch it. Coming into this movie, I'm at a loss for words, really, because I didn't expect to really, really, really dislike it for at least the first 45 minutes. It picked up with Claudia. And then the Theater of the Vampires, I still not a fan of. Even though I loved Armand, I thought he was great. I think Brad Pitt was just such like a dumpy Debbie Downer. I had such a hard time listening to him with his like flowery language, like the blooming evening of the night as I walked through the streets of New Orleans and my heart called for, and I'm like, shut the fuck up, man. Just
Dude,
shut
you
up.
know who Brad Pitt is? He's emo's not dead guy. That's who he is.
Don't you dare. Don't you insult Emo's Not Dead.
No, I will not insult it, but he's like that ridiculousness of like, my mug is broken. The world is over. I can't live anymore.
Yes.
I'm gonna spend 80 years talking about how sad I am because coffee spilled on the floor. That's him.
Yeah, it really is.
Also, welcome to Sam's life of Ian song jamming random shit.
Yeah. Ian just sings songs all the time, and
yeah,
our kid loves it.
Oh yeah, dude.
I like it most of the time. Sometimes I'm just like, stop it. Just stop.
You like it for the first like 30 seconds. It's when I go on for another 3 minutes like this movie that you're like, all right, it was done a long time ago. You've killed it. You've killed it dead.
Right. So I think Louis was the original emo, and he just ran that shit into the ground. He wrote it as long as he could and then kept trying to write it. And
My Vampire Romance over here.
It got so old by the end of the movie. It was really difficult to listen to.
I think one of these things that really hurts this film, one of them, is his like dead monotone in the conversations with Christian Slater.
Yeah.
It's so like, and then was she and I regretted everything we did for all those years, and you've fallen asleep again. You might want to wake up. I'm telling you, this vampire's life. Sir.
It's the most interesting story you've ever heard in your entire life.
Every time you get a break out of into the modern world, it wasn't interesting. It was just this dull room and a dull tone, and Kristen Slater chain smoking.
I do want to say I actually really dislike Christian Slater in pretty much everything except True Romance and Heathers. True Romance is one of my favorite movies ever, and Heathers is very enjoyable. But he basically pretends to be Jack Nicholson in everything, and I can't handle it. I didn't hate him in this movie. He didn't bother me at all.
He was fine. It's just he didn't really have a role that did much interesting.
Right. He was just sort of there to drive the narrative.
Yeah.
But interesting fun fact, that part was actually supposed to be played by River Phoenix, but he passed away by overdose before he was able to do the role. So Christian Slater took on the role, and he donated his entire salary to River Phoenix's favorite charity, which I thought was really cool.
That's really cool. Good on you. Good on you for that.
So a high point.
All right. So do I like this? No. I'm going to quote myself, which I wrote down as the movie ending. I wrote, quote, "Get the fuck out of my life, movie."
Yeah.
Ian as he clicked off the movie.
Yeah, I have to say the 15-year-old Sam inside of my soul is screaming out in anguish as I, the adult Sam, say, I also do not like this movie. I can't. It was really difficult to get through. it was really difficult to get through. And the only thing that to me was redeeming was Tom Cruise was the perfect Lestat. If you read the books, he is Lestat. Like, he's so good. He's so good in that role.
He was great in that role. He really was.
He's just like delightfully monstrous. Kirsten Dunst was very good. I thought Antonio Banderas was very good. I think, like I said earlier, the costuming, the cinematography is really beautiful, but it's all very flashy with no substance, and that's the thing I hate.
The only thing that kind of failed cinematography wise was when they did that terrible graphics of burning down the mansion, and it looked like it was done like it was 90s. It didn't age well. It might have been fine for the time, but it was kind of rough.
Right.
I agree with you though so wholeheartedly that this was like, what's the phrase that they use? It's like it's like candy.
Big,
it's sweets. It's all like sugar. There's no substance, and it wears off very quickly.
it was like a big, beautiful, shiny package with a perfect, beautiful bow, and then you open it and there's a big dump inside.
Yeah. There's just shit. So much shit everywhere inside the package.
It really made me sad. I'm actually like kind of sad about it. I tried so hard to not dislike it, and it just was really bad.
I was just so surprised because it was such a big deal, and I guess because we were in that age group that had the target audience, all of my perspective from that time were mostly girls fawning over it.
Well, and I think at the time, so first of all, they're handsome, blah blah blah. It was the first like mainstream, not like horror slasher comedy vampire movie done in that style. It was like very serious and based in history kind of. And so I think that it was very different than anything anyone's seen before in terms of vampires. It kind of kickstarted the whole everybody's obsessed with vampires thing. And I think that was a big part of it because, it spawned a horrific sequel. If you think this was bad, the sequel is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Like Book of Shadows quality?
Yeah, real bad. The only thing that's good is it has an incredible soundtrack. I think Korn wrote almost all of the soundtrack. And I know that Korn right now is probably not like, you're probably not like, oh yeah, great, that sounds awesome. But in the early 2000s.
Dude, 1995 to like 2003, that was a jam.
But really, Jonathan Davis, who's the lead singer and songwriter of Korn, he wrote and performed the songs, and they're so good. Like, I could still listen to that soundtrack. It's such a good soundtrack.
Interesting. Okay.
So the sequel is the one with Aaliyah. And first of all, they butchered the source material horrifically. Like, it's unrecognizable. They should have just called it something else. And it's basically, like I said, Lestat was hibernating. He woke up in the 80s because he heard 80s like rock music and was like, "Ooh, what's this? I want to do this." And so the premise is, it's actually based on the third.
It's nonfiction, actually.
Yeah, it's based on a true story.
It explains a lot of the 80s.
Lestat wakes up, he hears this music, and he decides, I'm going to be a rock star. So he is. He just becomes a rock star. That's part of the book.
That was not. You should have done, Ian, guess where you think this movie's going with Lestat's character. I wouldn't have gotten that.
And that's the whole premise of the movie. And then they add in this weird thing with Aaliyah and this other weird shit. And they just like totally cut out the entire backstory, which is actually really interesting. And It is straight garbage. If you don't know anything about the book, it's unwatchable. If you know anything about the book,
it's also unwatchable.
Slightly less unwatchable, but still unwatchable, if that makes sense. So yeah, this movie compared to that one is a fucking masterpiece. So,
wow,
there's that. So maybe part in my head, I'm basing it like, it's not that bad. At least it's not. Oh, it was Queen of the Damned.
Queen of the Damned, yeah.
I keep calling it Vampire Lestat because that's the second book, but they took like parts of Vampire Lestat and parts of Queen of the Damned and smashed it together into the worst movie ever. So yeah, I mean, we can watch that at some point, but I think you should take some time.
I agree. I am in no rush to jump back into this universe.
You should take some time away from this world.
I took a few days and I still can feel it.
It's a rough one.
That was a rough one. So there you have it. That is Interview with the Vampire. Don't watch it. Please don't watch it.
I'm so sad, baby Tom and baby Brad. I loved you so much, and now as an adult, I'm I feel really weird about that. So, good news. Anne Rice has full rights to this. Well, I don't know if it's good news because she's kind of like a wackadoodle, but I love her.
Yeah, she's gone like from vampires to Christian to vampires
Jesus
again,
and then back to vampires. Yeah, it's all over the place.
So we don't know what we're gonna get for her in this one.
Right. So she got all the rights back to her stuff, and so she's doing a series, which I just found out about like right after we watched this. Or no, right before, like the day before we were planning to watch this, I found out about it. AMC is doing a series next year, and it's a mini series of Interview with the Vampire. So fingers crossed that maybe it's better.
I'm gonna let you watch it first. I'm not diving in that. Nope. I'm not opening that shit package.
I have a lot of other things on my list, especially after this movie. Maybe I'll wait. But yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, we gotta watch Murder Plane Vampire.
Yeah, Vampire Murder Plane. You can get it right.
It's Blood Red Sky is the actual movie I'm referring to.
Never heard
it's
of
it.
It's
on Netflix. Get ready.
Do your thing.
While you may have never heard of that, if you've heard of us and enjoyed us, please go rate and review us on Apple, iTunes. It makes a big difference. You can follow us on all our socials. They're in the notes to this episode. Sam is hilarious on our Instagram. I try to stay off of our specific one and post on my own because they're bad jokes and they're dad jokes. So I don't really want to affiliate that with Sam. Poor thing. Sam, do you have anything you want to add?
I feel like there was something I wanted to say. But
we have a really exciting week next week. Not that this wasn't exciting, but we have one of my bucket list interviews coming out on Monday, and then an episode on Thursday. And it all is thanks to The Asylum, one of my favorite companies. I'm really excited about this. So Sam was taking a break, so she's actually going to be hearing this interview for the first time as well. So
I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah.
She has no idea if I'm being accurate in this hype. Yeah.
And then we have a very fun October planned. It's totally different than what anyone else is probably doing. It's very unexpected and it's very silly, and I can't wait.
We're excited for what we're bringing you coming up. It's going to be fun. So thank you guys for listening so much. We'll see you next week.
Bye.